All right. You know, have you ever thought what it would be if an agent built agents that built things? It's almost like Inception. But we're going to do just that here in just a second when we join Stephen.
The main thing is you got to understand the architecture.
Give me the ball. What's happening, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the game on Pax8 Live, the store where we talk about all the cybersecurity and increasingly AI shenanigans you need to be aware of. Thanks for joining us. Man, it's getting close to the end of the year, so I'm running out of things to promote. There's a boot camp next week. It's probably too late to register, but we do, I believe, still have room at Security Boot Camp, which is the best boot camp. It's in Atlanta, which is a great city. So you should definitely check it out. pax8.com/events. Like, share, subscribe, interact with us in the comments. We give away XP now, and I don't know what you can cash it in for, but you get XP, so you may as well stack it up. And with that, let's roll straight into the show.
Man, I collect points. I'll collect XP points. I'll go say something in the show. No, it's awesome, man. Great to see you, Dom, and even better to see you, Stephen. I get to work with you in a lot of capacitances, but
Yep.
none of them have ever been in what you do, and kind of the stuff
Fair.
that you've come up with from a solutions perspective. And so I'm really excited to share this. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody and kind of tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. Stephen Kellogg, founder of Blue Helm Technology, predominantly do fractional CTO, CIO work, and a lot of that involves doing discovery and finding out processes that need improving, and some of that involves automation and AI. So today we're going to kind of dive into how some of that fun magic happens and tools that I'm playing with to help boost efficiency on my end.
Awesome. Well, there's no sense in me wasting any time asking you more questions about that. Why don't we get right into kind of talking about what you want to show off today, man?
Sure. So the fun thing that I did was just playing around. I do stuff inside of Power Apps. I've been learning that world and Copilot Studio and agents. And I got the bright idea to go over to my what I call my employee of the month, ChatGPT, and have it help me out, right? So I thought, well, what if I fed it a bunch of data and said, hey, I want to play with this new Power App, basically Copilot, where you can give it a prompt and it does its best to build up the app. But I want to try to do that and be efficient and have it build out a better product than just kind of a one liner. Build this.
Sure.
So I went over to ChatGPT. We're going to make that a little bigger. And basically, I did one of my lazy interactions where I just kind of do more like I'm chatting to somebody, which
Sure.
often produces decent results. And told it, hey, I want to have you build a prompt for me. Do you understand? It said, yep, this is what we'll do. And I said, okay. And then I said, let me throw some diagrams at you. So I had some diagrams that I had built out, and they're basically data flow diagrams. I'm not going to pull them up
Sure.
and get into the details of them, but it's, data flow. How does the process happen? And it said, great. And out of that, it said, hey, you gave good diagrams. Here's what I take away.
Sure.
And I
I
also
want to
asked
pause
it,
for a sec. I
yep.
want to pause for a second and just real quick chat about something. So, a couple things that you did there. I
Mhm,
believe in multi-model support and function. I think there's a lot of value in crossing over from one model to help you do things with
mhm,
other models that produces pretty good results. So, for everybody
mhm.
that's watching, one of the first takeaways is he's using ChatGPT and said, "Hey, I'm going to be specifically using Microsoft Power Platform. I need to do these things." That's the first takeaway: is that using one AI and LLM or generative AI to help you build another flow process piece. It has great
Oh, it's
understanding of that. It
massively
knows.
helpful. Like if so I do a lot of for fun like coding in Visual Studio Code and oh man, GitHub Copilot. And like the prompt that ChatGPT wants, is very different from the prompt that like Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, or Power Automate wants. And it's actually much harder unless you've done it a lot to write those technical prompts. So asking asking a conversational tool to help you dive into a technical tool is ridiculously valuable.
Very helpful. And then the second piece I wanted to add too, Stephen, is LLMs and generative AI are great at taking context from imagery with process flows. One of the things I've noticed is they're extremely good at picking apart, at least to whatever contextual aspect you've given them,
Hmm.
into these pieces. Where I first noticed it, Stephen, is you're in my work with framework maps, right?
Right.
It was very easy to feed, not very easy because it was a very large PDF and I had to parse it into
Right.
small things to stay within the
Yep.
context
Yep.
window. But it was very easy to feed that 200-page document to it and ask it to break out the constituent pieces, think about and iterate on those with keywords. And so I just want to give, for anybody that's watching, you can up your game by giving contextually relevant documents along with your text when you're trying to solve something. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
All right,
And
continue. Sorry about
interesting
that.
small side note with that too is I didn't actually update the drawing files themselves. I actually just took a screenshot and dropped that in, and
Same.
it
I've
pulled
done that
off
many
of the
times. Yeah.
screenshot. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep. Great call out.
yep. So I also had, I don't know if you saw it at the top, but I said, ask me questions that will help you give me a better prompt. And so it did.
Sure.
And here's its list of questions. And so
And
this
it
is
won't
me
always do
answering.
that natively for you either. I think you need to. That's another
Almost
takeaway, which is,
never.
yeah, I don't know. I've seen
It
some
is
of the new
starting.
stuff in
Yeah.
Haiku and in Sonnet 4.5 have gotten better about going, can I ask you some clarifying
Okay.
things? But it almost always follows the instruction to ask me clarifying things. And maybe a final takeaway is you could potentially in a Claude or in a Copilot or GitHub Studio modify the Claude MD file to say, always ask clarifying questions when being
Right.
prompted with something. So there are methods to do that more systemic function. But anyways, great call
Yeah.
out, Stephen.
So out of that, I answered the questions, show that up here. And then, of course, being very nice as it always is.
You're so
Excellent. Your
nice.
answers clarify everything. Okay, perfect. Um,
The perfect answerer.
but the result was this. Right. And then you see this is a long scroll. I went on and asked a
Sure.
whole bunch of stuff, but ultimately I came back up and I grabbed this prompt. And so we'll now shift over to Power Apps.
Yep.
And this is the prompting space. So basically I dropped it in here and hit go. And that's what
The
this,
whole prompt from the
yep,
Hanger management
I
system
dropped
that
the
you
whole
got
prompt. Yep.
from the ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yep. And we'll see it again. I'll show it in here. But I
Yep.
love the name, Hanger Management System.
HMS
Very literal.
or Majesty
Yeah.
Service or Majesty Service.
So this is it. Basically, this business problem is the prompt. So all the
Yep.
way down through the app should be mobile/tablet friendly for inspections. So when you hit it and hit go, it generates this plan. And just of note, I have done nothing additional to this at all. So what you see
Yeah.
is actually what it generated in whole. Um, so out of that prompt, again, I'll go back up and show the prompt. It's got users include admin, leasing staff. So I didn't. ChatGPT called out the users,
Yep.
called out the data structure, called out the workflow, um, notifications and reporting. And some of this I have found there are some caveats I'll talk to. But basically, if you're familiar with agile development, it's kind of using that user story format. As a user, I need or I want to
Sure.
blah.
Yeah. The problem
So it built
statements are
that
stated
out.
in user context,
Yep. So it built all that out. And then it jumps into user processes. And so
which
it
it got from
defines
the
these.
context and the additional questions that you
Yep.
gave it.
And then it goes into building out the data model. And when it does this, there's a little plus symbol. So you can look and say, yes, add this one, and it'll generate that. And
Sure.
I'll dive in a little bit over here. Let me close this guy
Did
and
you
zoom
have
in on
fairly
this.
extensive Power BI background before this, or was this already something that you learned right then as you were doing this, or were you already doing a lot of Power BI, Stephen?
No, I had dabbled with the Power App platform as a whole,
Sure.
but not
Yeah, Power
extensively.
Apps, not Power BI. I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. I have done more with Copilot Studio building agents and with Power Automate specifically building out workflows. But the whole Power App side with model-driven apps or Canvas apps or that side of the things I haven't really played with, but I was like,
Sure.
it's here. And that's what led me down this whole, let me build a prompt and see what happens.
That's cool.
So it
The
lays it out this
architecture,
way.
like that it accomplished too, is really I mean, that's a full like MVC application, right? Like it's thought through a
Yep.
lot without you having to think for it.
Yeah. And that's really what I wanted to show is so here's that same business problem laid out. Here are the users. And then each one of these are like this is a model driven app it built. This is a Canvas app it
Explain
built. Here's
model-driven
the
app for
agent.
people, please.
So a model driven app is more designed around the structure of the data and
Okay.
it'll build and even when you look at it, it's almost like spreadsheet interaction. Like it shows a grid and you can interact with it that way. But then the
Okay.
Canvas app is more UI focused. And so it's geared around for you, it's geared around like the stuff that Alex built with the framework
Yeah,
maps, right?
form,
Where there's
interactive
much more
page that I can click
forms
on
and
stuff.
interaction
Yeah,
pages.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The other thing I want to
And
point out
then,
while we're here in this kind of in this view is
uh,
the other reason I find AI and building with AI like this to be super valuable is that you can literally ask it to build this and then go look at components and the way that it built it and go, oh,
yep,
that's what this is meant to be used for. Right? Like I
Yeah.
had
yep,
it
it's a
build me
good
some
learning
JSON
tool.
objects for an innate inflow one time, and I was able to go, "Oh my god, I understand switches so much better now that I've
Mm,
seen one built out with its flow." And so for those
yep.
kinesthetic learners out there, it might be valuable just to build something to go see what works and what doesn't work and understand how components interact with each other in these type of models. So just wanted to add that in.
Yeah. So two things. One is here's the data model, right? And I can click on it, but I can actually show details and it's got the whole entity relationship diagram. Try not to use the acronyms. But you'll see here, it shows the relationships, right? It's here's your primary key, here's your one to many
Sure.
relationship and how it relates to the other tables.
Yeah, here's the hanger here
Um,
and the hanger there. Yep.
right. And then you can click on it and it'll show you here's all the fields and then you show which ones you want to show on the diagram. But this
Can we
was
step
pretty
back just
cool.
for a
It
second for the audience and just like let's give a 20-second what is this? Like these are Dataverse tables, right? So what is
Yep,
Dataverse?
yep, good question. So most people are familiar with a database like SQL Server is pretty
Right?
really common. Postgres, Oracle, a bunch of them out there. Microsoft has what they call the Dataverse, and actually they've moved where Dynamics, their CRM big platform, uses Dataverse. One of the cool things is if you are using Dataverse here, you actually can tap into some of the core tables that they have for Dataverse for Dynamics as well.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Helps you automate
there's a
dynamics
whole
quite a bit through that.
Yeah, you can do a lot with Dynamics through that, but there's a whole underlying piece called Microsoft Fabric that is like not for this show, but Dataverse actually can be tied into Fabric as well. And so it's a core storage, if you will, for the data. It's where tables are built like you would in a database, and then you can access the fields as part of those tables. And then this is showing that interaction between the tables saying, hey, the hanger name that's here can be used in this lease table here to show
The
this
hanger
lease is
object.
tied to that hanger.
So full
Is it a
blown
lot more
like
like
relational database tables as a service, but nobody has to go in and figure out why the freaking SQL server won't start. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And you can add a new table, right? So you're not limited to what it created. You could continue to expand on this app and
yep.
say, oh, well, we also forgot, or we've added this, or we tied in that. And you can create the relationships here.
It's a lot more
Um,
like graph, right? Like, is that a way to say this too? Is a lot more like where the objects themselves can have tagging that ties to other things and are correlatable, right? Is kind of what you're seeing there.
yeah, it's sort of. But it is more like just a regular relationship based
Gotcha.
database.
Okay.
Yeah, a
Cool.
relational database. Um,
Showing
Like a
Matt's
foreign
weakness
key
in
kind of thing,
databases
right?
in three,
yeah.
two. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, so this is the table view. I also wanted to. Let me go back here. The power of the back button. Did it work? It did not. All right, we'll go back in here. So what's interesting is this up here is showing the requirements agent. So these are all the little agents that it used to build out the different pieces. That makes sense?
Nice. Yep.
Now, the other thing I wanted to jump back here and show, these are all the processes that it built out. So the same thing, I can hit view process and it's actually showing me what
Oh,
it's
that's great.
considering the flow that it would take for that process. So
Yep. Access
inspection or
database.
maintenance required.
Yep.
Um,
Review hanger status, assign inspection
yeah,
task if one is found, receive
yep,
inspection transaction, conduct and log hanger inspection. So yeah, so it's kicking into each of those components end to end as it saw from
yeah,
your initial diagrams that looked
yep,
somewhat similar to this of a process flow, is what it seems like.
yep. That's exactly what it is a process flow.
And it's
So
worded like
again,
a
down
business
here,
process. Like that's a thing a human does. They conduct a log hanger inspection or and log right. Like
yeah,
that's easy
Yeah,
to read.
I understand assigning a work order for issues. Like I got this. I know how to
Yes.
resolve and
yeah,
close
create
one.
and
That makes
assign.
total business
Exactly.
sense. Yeah, yeah. Those are
Yep.
cash or quote to cash,
So
right?
this is where it's telling you the technology that it used. So again, it used a model driven app to build the Hangar Management Central app, the Canvas app for the model inspection app. And then here's
Mobile.
the
Yeah.
agent. The couple caveats that I mentioned. One is the Power Automate did not build. And
Oh, it just made it as allegory,
so
like notes to do later type thing?
it tried to build them, but when I looked at them, I was like, yeah, this is not a good Power Automate app. This won't do anything. So I was like, yeah,
So it's
nice
like
try.
every other
So,
coding agent then,
so
because Claude
yeah,
Code,
there are
it's so
pieces. Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
because Claude Code has that same issue where it'll be like, I'm done, and you're like, API endpoint doesn't
Yeah, no.
exist when you hit it in
That's
404,
right.
and you're like, why? And you go in there and you read it, it's like a to-do note. You're like, no, putting a to-do
Yeah.
note does
But
not
it
make it
did.
done.
I deleted the
Exactly
code and
right.
the error is no longer present. Ready to push.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Oh
But
man,
this
that's
does
cool.
show you, like, see this little plus here?
Sure.
So this would be all of these had pluses.
All of those are done. They were, and you
And I
finished
said,
the
okay,
plus
create
stages.
it. And it would
Yeah, yeah,
create
yeah.
it. And then I could look at it. Yeah.
But the
So
good
So
news
lots of
is you could
human in the loop
theoretically go
too. Like you
complete
got to
that
review
yourself as
each.
human in the loop. Yeah, great call. Sorry.
yeah. So jumping through, this is more that data driven look or data model app, right? So I
Sure.
can see the hangars and click and see the aircraft. Um, and then I can click into it to get a little bit of details. Then as we keep going, this is the actual quote unquote interface app.
Yep.
Um, and I can hit preview on it. But what's pretty neat is I can actually like this is the web view.
Oh
So I
yeah,
can now
sure.
I can pick, oh, let me look at it on this type of phone.
I
Even a
love that they
Xiaomi.
mocked up the
Wow.
phone too. Like
and
that's pretty
and I
cool.
can
They actually did the
actually
outside body.
yeah, I can actually interact with it, right? So I can say, let me see the work orders. Okay, well here are the work orders. Well, great. Let me see what's the detail of the work order. It has the
Awesome.
ability to let you make the app work offline. So I didn't mess with that, but it does allow
Okay.
that. Um, and then it has the ability to also switch the horizontal to vertical view. That's down here,
Nice.
right? So if I
Yeah,
want to
sure.
see what it looked like on
Great
a
for
tablet,
testing. Yeah, great for
yeah,
testing for that purpose of
yep.
quality control. In fact, you know what,
But
Stephen? There's an
also the
interesting
fact that it
aspect
made
here.
this app is pretty cool.
It is. You know what's neat though? You could probably test these apps with Playwright. Not to go off on a
It's true.
tangent, but you could use Playwright to peruse through each of these different phones and see if the app
Hmm.
looks like it is usable. I just a side tangent of being able to use now a QA bot that is something else that has
Yeah,
API keys to interact with the app
yeah,
and test the app from that perspective. I don't know, a little bit of a
yeah.
side tangent, but
Ping me again in a couple months because they're also building some of that with some of the Microsoft stuff that's coming out
killer.
with the
Yeah, very
ability
good.
to build out tests for stuff. All right. So continuing on, at one point it was like, okay, let's build the website part.
Sure.
And then it put up 6 different things and said, which of these screens do you want? And of course, me being me said, I want all 6. Why not? And so it basically it built all of this as well. So the idea is this is a website. Now, again, those caveats I threw out, none of these buttons actually work, even if I go into
For
preview,
future
which
implementation.
yeah,
To do.
it's like
Right.
these will switch to a new screen, right? So each of the screens are there, but if I do like submit inquiry, these
Oh,
parts
so
are
good.
like your to do,
Not
your
working
equivalent of
yet.
that.
How
Yeah.
resilient do you think you are using Copilot to get those things fixed? Like, I know in Claude what my path would be. My path would be absolutely like, hey, Claude, issue number 10652 in GitHub shows problems with this web server. Please go fix it. In the Microsoft ecosystem,
Yeah.
how would you go about in your mind getting to
So
whole from there?
with a lot of these,
I
they
know how you do
also
it in
do have
Power
Copilot.
and some of those things. Yeah, like I get that. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
like a lot of these, they do have Copilot that you can pull up and ask questions. So even like when I
Okay.
was on the table view, um,
Yep. What about the web
like
page
here's
view? Same thing.
Copilot, create, import,
Okay.
change. Honestly,
Okay.
you're seeing about as much as I've seen on the website. I haven't played on this
Sure.
part of it yet.
I was just curious.
Um,
Yeah, I was just curious
yeah,
what you could do
but
there.
well, here's design. So here's Copilot, page design,
So
data
you
forms,
could probably get it
task.
fixed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You could definitely use
yeah.
Copilot to continue, just like in Claude. Cool.
And then in the app side as well, when you're working, well, this doesn't really show it well, but you can build out the pages, and it's a bit more like, I mean, they probably would hate me for saying this, but it reminds me of like the front page days where you have certain
Yep, sure
components you
does.
can drop in and split
Sure
and do all
does.
that, right? Um,
You're the
and
second
then I
time I've
wanted to,
heard front page in the last like 3 days. This is a
was it
real
me both
problem, a real
times?
omen. It might have been. It was front page
Might have
98.
been.
Somebody mentioned. Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to show is it also built an lease inquiry assistant agent in Copilot Studio. So
Sure.
this is
Cool.
something else it built as well. And you can see I ran a couple like, do I have any available hangers? Well, here are the hangers.
I want the West Wing.
So yeah. Um, so that's that one. And then the other piece I wanted to talk about is I did another one of these, uh, and then we'll dive. I guess we have 5 minutes. We'll dive in quickly. So I'm pretty big on trying to use JSON when I'm interacting
Yep.
um, with
Yep.
LLMs, and so I actually had a lot of fun, and I don't even know where to start on talking through all of this, but basically, I said initially I was chatting and saying what I want to build is a good JSON format that I know I can ask a bunch of questions, feed it to you, and you can build the JSON that I can then drop into Power Apps. So I can
Sure.
start building some consistency, making sure I'm answering the right questions, just playing with that idea. And then I did what any person working with LLMs would do, would be like, "Hey, give me an example." So it listed a bunch, and I said, "Great, do your best to like fill out the JSON with one of these examples." And it built out, here's table structure, here it did everything. It didn't ask, I didn't have to put anything. So
Nope.
I took the JSON from the fleet maintenance dispatch, and same thing. If I go back in here, here's the business problem. But what I learned is, oh, whoops, Power Apps has a window limit. So you can see it
Oh,
got
yeah.
through the first two tables and said, I'm done.
Success.
So
No.
it did the same thing, right? It started building, but then what I figured out is, okay, well, if I go into show details of tables, then I can say new table, and
And bring the
uh, I
JSON.
have
Yeah.
I have described new tables right here. This one's
Yep. With
limited to
JSON.
2000, right? So I just
Yeah.
started taking the next chunk of 2000 and the next chunk of 2000. But if you look at this, I mean, it built, this is the underlying
Well, that one's crazy.
Yeah, it
EDR,
is.
right? And it built the same thing. Like I was able to ask, um, this was funny. I
Questions
said,
about the
"Who's
work order.
assigned?" Yeah, I said, "Who's assigned to this work order?" And I said, "Oh, I want to switch it from technician D to C." And it's like, "Oh, well, you have to authorize this." And I said, "Okay, please reassign." And it said, "Yeah, I can't do that." And I said, "Well, how do I do that?" Well, then it gave me actual steps. You open the access work order module, locate the work order, edit it, change the technician. So it at least gave me the steps out of the app to go back and do it, which I thought was kind of funny.
And you could probably even use that to say, I now need to build here's what it told me to do, and take those steps back to ChatGPT and say, I
Yeah.
just got this out of Copilot. Help me write an app that I could bring into this existing data model that you've
Yeah.
already created that allows me, right? So there's paths there, I think, to go back and forth. In fact, I like to think of it as an advisor in my chatting model, right? Where I'm going back and
Mhm.
forth advisorily and then going back and doing the work with the other model like this in Copilot or whatever you might be. In this
And
case, not the agent, but you know what I mean.
I've also had pretty decent success saying, I'm building out a Power Automate flow to do these things. What's the best approach? And then
Sure.
working with it to go ahead and build that out. Another fun one I did is I hadn't worked in Postman. If you're familiar with Postman, it's
Mhm.
often
Love
used
Postman.
for testing APIs and that kind of thing. And I needed to prove out being able to use a mapping tool to build out efficient routes. So, hey, we have
Okay.
10 deliveries. What's the best route to take? Here are all the locations. So I worked with ChatGPT and it actually built something that I imported into Postman. Now, I did this a while
Nice.
ago and I had to go back and say, no, I got this error. Oh, yeah, you got to fix
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
No, I
yeah.
got this error. Okay,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So that iterative process, but I had never used the particular GIS mapping API that I was using this time. So I was able to point and say, here's the API. What do I need to use? Oh, use this endpoint. Okay, great. Now help me build the structure for it. Okay, great. And ultimately I got it to work, which was really cool, including an image with the little route and the all of that. So
Yep.
a
Yeah,
lot of
that is
Thinking
fun.
one of the
about,
things.
you
Go
touched
ahead,
on
Tom.
JSON a minute ago, and that's, I think, in general, and someone in the chat, perfect bliss, I probably read that wrong, was mentioning Pommel, and I told him Pommel makes
Pommel,
me
huh?
sad because it looks like XML, and I hate XML. But anyways, like today it's
Is that
JSON,
Ash?
and is it? I don't know her YouTube
I
name,
don't know.
but
Are you Ash, Perfect Bliss?
But
tell us in the comments.
I've only known a
Um,
couple people that talked about Pommel in my life, and Ash is one of them.
I'm one
So
of
my
them.
gut says that's Ash.
They're all here,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but JSON is really important to understand. It's been around a long time. Every REST API in the world uses JSON. Your tokens are
Mhm.
JSON based, but that is a core way to communicate in a very structured format. And the reason I like JSON, and machines like JSON, is easy for you to read. Like, just you could just go pull up, you Google it, show me something in JSON, and you can read it and figure out what it is. And that's the beauty of it. And your work, kind of using ChatGPT to help you make a schema, is really valuable. So JSON is very convenient for machines and humans, and that's kind of what I like
Yep.
about it. It is Ash.
I was gonna try
Yes.
to scroll and
I
find
thought
some.
so.
Yeah. So here's the example of JSON. So, it's basically kind of list items and then key value pairs.
Sure.
So what's the scope is kind of the higher level. And then inside of that, the scope is made up of V1, which is this information. So this is the name, this is the value part of the name value pair. And then it put in even, hey, here's things we could do later. Roles is the same. So a name is an admin, the description is full control. So these are the name value pairs inside of roles.
It's very cruddy. Sorry, that's a terrible joke.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, we've covered a lot here today, and I think that's the goal of this kind of ongoing show. It is me. I thought so. That's Ash. If you guys don't know Ash, she was on our show a couple of weeks ago, or maybe
Yeah.
last week. I think a couple weeks ago. Ash is probably another one of those very brilliant humans. Believes Pommel will solve a lot of things as far as LLMs and things in that nature.
I didn't say
But
Pommel's a
yeah,
bad thing, just for the record. I just said I don't like
I,
it because
I
it
I
looks a
heard you
lot like
say it, Dom. You said
XML.
Pommel sucks. We can play the
It
tape back, but I remember you saying
just
Pommel
needs to
sucks. That
not
was
look like XML, because XML makes me sad.
Pommel Pommel is out of Microsoft's shop, by the way, for
That's
those
why it looks
interested.
like XML. Yeah, it's because Microsoft
that
made
checks out. Yeah, that
it.
checks out. No, this is awesome. I think some of the key takeaways today are using multi models to interact between your advisor or your like to Stephen's point, his employee of the month, which that'll stick with me for a while. But anyway, Stephen, this is awesome, man. How do you think when you think about this, maybe as a reflection, how many hours would it have taken you to even get to this broken state by Expanse? Right, like you had to come up if you were set and said, "I'm going to go build this," and let's say you knew the pieces. What do you think that hours were just done in that Copilot from
Mm,
from
a
ChatGPT? I
lot.
have a
I
gut
mean,
of
it
what I
really
think it
would.
was, but yeah, go.
It would have been a lot. I like to go the reverse way.
Okay,
When I took the prompt and dropped it in, it took me 30 minutes of clicking the little plus button and saying, "Wow,
sure.
this is cool," to get to what you saw today.
Okay,
So I don't know. It might have taken. Obviously, it would have taken me a lot longer than that.
yeah, my
Um,
gut says 60 to
and
100 hours just to get to that
yeah,
same
I
level
would
of
say
broken state,
that's
if not more. Yeah,
fair. And and to be fair, to me, this is not a. I wouldn't kick this over to a client and say, "Here's your app,"
right.
right? This is probably that
But now you could
80/20
put
rule.
40 to 60 hours in it that are just polish and quality and value
Exact.
and
Well,
not infrastructure
now
and
what I
structure.
could do
Yeah.
is show it to the client and say, "Here's what we've got. It'll take me probably X to build out the rest and get it like we want.
Yep.
Is this even worth you wanting to pursue?" Instead of trying
It's
to
that
Speed
it's
to failure.
it's like doing the prototype, but it's on the fly, right?
Yeah. And we saw this done in additive manufacturing, right? If you think about what additive manufacturing did from subtractive manufacturing, the ability to go print something from the ground up in plastic that I can test. In fact, Vornado fans, one of the things they did is they got rid of almost all of their initial testing engineers because they could just prototype it on a 3D printer. And so they started doing that. And so,
Yeah.
when you think about this, this is our version of that additive manufacturing
Yeah.
coming in. Let me just build something up to MVC, right? Minimum viable crappiness, get a buy-in as to whether it's worth building, and then build out that prototype into reality. You might even recode it completely, but you
Yeah.
got to a minimum viable crappiness and got buy-in. And Dom, you kind of said this really well, in my opinion, like rapid time to failure. I'd love for that client in 30 minutes of my time to tell me this sucks, not in 40 hours of my time, whether that be something
Yeah.
I'm spending on my own dime or that's something I'm being paid for. Either way, I'd rather be more efficient, I suppose, at that.
Yeah. One of my next things is to take some of my discovery documents that I built that I do, my notes and that, and try to get ChatGPT to build out a mermaid um, diagram and
Yep.
see how far I get with that.
That's awesome. Well, Stephen,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here. I think we're getting
absolutely.
to that time of the show where we need to close it up. Any closing thoughts that you'd want to share with the audience about basically just using Microsoft's Power Platform or anything that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I do try to push into the Microsoft ecosystem is because of the data side of things. So I know there are a
Sure.
lot of people that are pushing, oh no, you need to use ChatGPT, but where's your data going for your business? Whereas when you're in Microsoft's ecosystem, obviously, if you're exposing agents externally, different story, right?
Yeah,
As
for
we've
sure.
seen in different cases, right? So I'm not a fan of that portion of it. But that's one of the reasons I like it. It's also already in their ecosystem. So you can have their users with their roles and permissions. That's what the agent follows, right? The downside is
That's
a lot of
awesome.
SharePoint sites are super crap. So you got to clean that up
You
first,
heard it here, folks.
right? But you got to clean
Yeah.
that up first. And people are like, oh, let's get M365 Copilot. And I'm like, oh, let's look at your SharePoint first.
Well, and to your point, you could create Dataverses out of that by using these same modalities to look through SharePoint
Yeah.
for things that need space, building your Dataverse out. So I think there's just such a cool aspect. And that's really what I want to close on is like staying in the Microsoft ecosystem as that continues to meet muster and be capable through Power Apps, through other extensibilities like what you did. We're going to be in a lot better shape of having that business data already right here: identities, sign in, CA, protection, authorization, auth in,
Yeah.
auth Z. Those extensibilities are going to be so much more valuable over time. So,
Yeah,
Stephen,
and
thank you for
then if
being.
you really get deep, you look at Microsoft Fabric and that whole underlying data structure if you're on the high end of the data side. So
Yeah. We'll have another episode about that, Stephen. You're just setting up a precursor to your future episode. I think you've done it twice now in this one. So, all right, brother. Thank you so
awesome.
much for being here.
Thank you. It's awesome.
All right, I think we're moving right into the play of the day.
All right. I was at a conference today in Canada, or yesterday in Canada, and an MSP came up and said, "I'm really behind. I'm really behind." And we chatted about it for about 30 minutes of just what has changed and how much have you had to grow in the last 6 months of your life with respect to understanding AI, agents, LLM, generative, application logic, using things like innate-in and Power Apps, those type of things. If you're not in it now, you just saw how easy it is to get in it. Stephen just gave us an example of asking for a prompt, sending it into Copilot, spending 30 minutes in Power Apps, and being able to walk away with a minimum viable crappiness product that tells you whether or not you can accomplish something in that given platform. I'm just saying that everything is changing so very fast, and my advocation is go take 30 minutes to an hour, play around, build something in your own world, and kinesthetically learn what can be done. Thank you.
Game over.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I'll leave you with one more parting thought is that up and until this point, Citizen Developer has been a lie. Just going to say it. Nobody was picking up Power Apps off the shelf and just building an app. It's not real. But I think Copilot is the real differentiator to enable citizen development and to build actually effective Power Apps and other platforms, perhaps in the future, on other citizen development type initiatives. So that's what I would encourage. Explore real citizen development programs, and now that it's actually within reach of citizens. With that, that is our show. Next week, we have a solo show, I believe is the plan. And we will be diving into, I don't know, we're going to figure it out right after this. So same time, same place next week. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And we'll see you then.